Good morning, everybody. For those of you who are just joining us today, I want to welcome you to the USU Partners in Business Conference for Accounting. My name is Brendan Archibald, and it's my great pleasure to introduce today Cathy Engelbert, who is the CEO of Deloitte LLP. Cathy has almost 30 years of experience in the public accounting industry. She has worked on some of the biggest and most complex clients at Deloitte, including some of the world's leaders in life science and pharmaceuticals. She has served as a partner in both the audit and the advisory practices at Deloitte. She has also served as chairman and CEO of the audit practice, as well as on the Deloitte board of directors. Cathy was recently ranked 21st out of 51 of the most powerful women in Fortune magazine. That puts her 30 places above Taylor Swift. So it's a pretty big deal that we have her here today. So please join me in welcoming Cathy Engelbert.
Yes, and my daughter, who's 18, she was most impressed because I beat Taylor Swift. Not that I was on the list itself. So thank you, Brennan, so much. It was nice to get to know him a little better before walking in here today. And I know he's an honor student here at the university, but he's also accepted an internship with Deloitte for our upcoming audit busy season. So it's great to have him here. But again, Dean Anderson, who I just got to meet, Dr. Walther, Dr. Skousen, the president, is here. It's so good to be here at Utah State today. I've been to Utah before, but mainly in the Salt Lake City area, so it's great to be up here in Logan and spend the day up here with you. I wanted to talk about a couple things today, and we are going to leave time for Q&A, so I want to make sure, start thinking of questions that you have, because as with any leader, I like to know more about what you want to ask me and what you want to hear about rather than what I want to talk to you about. But I'm going to take a few minutes to make some opening remarks and then open it up for some Q&A. But obviously, we all come from different places, different backgrounds, and I'm sure some of you are students who are completing your degree here, so congratulations as you go forward with that. Some of you, I understand, are professionals who have been in the profession in one way or another for many years or maybe a few years, so I am going to try to tailor my comments to all of you and hope that I give you some insight on what it's like being the CEO of Deloitte, as well as how we're trying to prepare the next generation of leaders in this profession and the outlook, quite frankly, on the profession that you should all be very interested in as business leaders and students. So, we do have one thing in common, and that is that I believe, even if I look out and I see some of you are students, and I don't see students, I see future CEOs and CFOs and future leaders in the business community. So it's important, I think, that one of the titles of this session was How You Shape Your Career. So I'm going to give you some advice towards the end around how to do that. But I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about my career story. I get asked, one of the most common questions is, did you aspire to be the CEO? And my answer categorically is no. I didn't aspire to have a box or a title, but I actually did aspire always to be a leader. And I think this started very young. I'm actually from a family of 8 children. I have 5 brothers and 2 other sisters, and I had to compete for everything growing up. So I think that leadership started early as I competed for things like cereal and food, especially against 5 brothers, if you can imagine. And I also went to a college at the time, a small school in Pennsylvania called Lehigh University, an engineering school, which when I entered the school, it was 4 male to 1 female. And I was the only female in my freshman English class. And I'll just never forget sitting in that room saying, wow, this is kind of different, although I grew up and call it a male-dominated household, then going to college. And then I joined a profession at the time in 1986 that was very male-dominated as well. So again, didn't aspire to be the CEO, but said, I can lead. Rough and tumble in the backyard with my 5 brothers. I can do this, and I can get to the next step in my career. So it's important that, don't aspire to a title or a box, but aspire to be a leader. I also played basketball and lacrosse in college, and I was actually recruited for lacrosse, but was a walk-on for basketball. And I'll never forget being named the captain of the basketball team my senior year. and really started reflecting upon it today. That really started my path to leadership, because as a captain of a sports team at the Division I level, you're really called upon not just to be the captain on game day, but to really lead the team and help the coach lead the team over the course of the season. So I think that was a big lesson for me. The other lesson for me is when I started at college, I actually didn't start as an accounting major. I started as a computer engineering and computer science major. But lucky for me, I had to take a Fortran engineering programming course. And I said, oh, this is definitely not for me. And someone said, well, you should switch to the business side, and where business calculus is a lot easier than engineering calculus, and which I did. And then someone said, and if you join the accounting major, you will get a job. And not only is accounting the language of business, but you actually will get a job. And there was the Big 8 at the time. And obviously, I started with Deloitte right out of college, so almost 30 years ago. And it was one of the best decisions of my life to switch and come into this profession. And it's because I didn't realize it at the time, but I didn't really know what accounting and auditing was. But now that I reflect back, it's a profession that's perfect for my style. It's perfect for the value that I think this profession brings to the capital markets. And I sometimes think there's a lot of myths out there of what accountants and auditors do. And only those of us who are in the profession know how, I think, more noble a profession it is, and how the objectivity, the professionalism that we bring and the trust that we bring to the business communities in which we serve is really important to our clients, our people, and the broader communities we serve. So I think that's something that was really just a perfect fit for me and my personality. So I think you ultimately need to have passion in the profession that you select and that you want to be in. And again, no better profession than this as you impact, again, the business community. Let me talk a little bit about leadership. There's a great quote from Peyton Manning that says, "I never left the field saying I could have done more to get ready, and that gives me peace of mind." And that's a really important perspective about being ready, being prepared, and bringing your best every day. And I hate to use sports analogies all the time, but sometimes they can be very powerful to, essentially think about how you put your work in the context of the value you're bringing every day. So I was reading about Utah State's victory over Boise State in October. So very, very proud to read about that's the first time USU's won since 1997 in a 26-point victory. So that must have been pretty exciting to be here on campus for that. And Coach Matt Wells said something that I love that I just read a week ago. He said, "This isn't the championship, but it puts us in the driver's seat. We'll control our own destiny, and that will be a challenge. It's a challenge our guys will gladly accept." And what struck me about that, it was about not that that one game defined the team, but the team that was preparing to bring their best every game. And that day obviously came out on the winning side of things. So I think when the right opportunities come up, I think my advice is seize them, drive, again, your capabilities. You're in the driver's seat. You can achieve your goals if you're prepared and you treat every day bringing your A game or bringing the best game that you have. So for me, that's how it was always been for me. Whenever I meet with CEOs and CFOs of major corporations here in the U.S. and globally, I prepare. I make sure I'm as prepared as I can be around who they are, the challenges they're facing, the issues, listening to how they're dealing with challenging in this ever-evolving environment. So I think that's an important part of leadership, that as we see the world changing, and yes, the world is changing very rapidly. Any of those who are already serving in the business community know this. So when I joined Deloitte right out of college in 1986, the world was a very different place. Believe it or not, I didn't have a computer. There were no smartphones. There was no internet. A gallon of gas was 89 cents. Lady Gaga was 3 months old, and Taylor Swift hadn't even been born yet. She was born in 1989. I had to look that up. And auditing was very different back then, and accounting. The regulatory world, of course, was very different. There was no Sarbanes-Oxley. Our work was very manual and labor-intensive. The profession was grappling with risk-based audit concepts and things today that actually seem like an easy part of what we do every day. And the proliferation of information technology meant that we needed to do accounting and auditing around the systems. And today, there's an ever rapidly changing technological environment such that even industry lines are blurring a little bit. I meet with CEOs of banks who said, we're like technology companies now. And you look at the Apples and the Alphabet Googles, and they're getting into payments and banking. And so these industry lines of technology in every industry, consumer products, life sciences, technologies driving R&D, research and development, is really evolving so quickly that I think it's really important that that we change and that we keep up with the pace of change. So the good news is that with the advent of computing power combined with cognitive technologies, the audit is evolving. Some people call it the future of the audit. Think about that. Sounds like maybe there isn't a future. Maybe Google will take over the auditing profession too. I call it the audit of the future. Sounds a little more inspiring, sounds a little more something like we have something to look forward to, and we absolutely do. So cognitive technologies, artificial intelligence. In fact, Deloitte has an artificial intelligence tool that we named Argus. Argus is actually a Greek mythological figure with eyes all around its head. And it's essentially a artificial intelligent machine reading tool where you can feed thousands and thousands of contracts in seconds in PDF form. And it identifies outliers, brings forward risks like never before. We actually just won an award for this over in London for the international arena. And it is because we're able to figure out that we can use these cognitive technologies to drive the audit forward and to give a vision of what the audit of the future looks like. And it will be taking some of these manual rote tests out of the audit, leaving the things that are very important to auditor judgment still there. So it's actually, I often get asked, is this going to create less auditors? No. I think this is going to create a lot smarter auditors and a lot more valuable auditors out in the marketplace because of our use of these. Talent, the next generation of talent is another area that I know you're all interested in. Who are we hiring? Why are we hiring? How is the world evolving around talent? And I talk about innovation, and innovation isn't just tools and technologies. It's about talent too. And as you look at all the generations, so at Deloitte we still have baby boomers, of which I'm one of the last years of a boomer, down to Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, digital natives, and now Gen Z. If you read the New York Times article about Gen Z, that are those coming into the workforce today who are digital natives or are looking for a different way of working. However, having said that, I know there's many millennials out there, and there's a lot of they, calling millennials they. I totally understand, and at Deloitte, over 50% of our workforce today are millennials. So this isn't something new to us. And millennials are very ambitious. You're all very, very much want to drive value and find purpose in what you're doing. So I think managing that in the context of our profession, that's what innovation's all about. That's what driving the audit of the future is about. That's what it is when we refer to leading the profession or leadership of the profession. Because it is important that you all see this as a profession with purpose, with value, and you can really provide that value to clients and to ultimately the capital markets investors who are really depending on this profession to drive the next generation of talent and drive the trust in the marketplace. So, one of the things, though, that we also understand is that the feedback and the performance management and evaluation of millennials has got to change. I laugh. I have two children. I have an 18-year-old daughter going on 30, and I have a 14-year-old son going on 3. So they're kind of going a little bit opposite directions. But my 18-year-old daughter, when she posts an Instagram, within 5 minutes, she has 300 likes on that Instagram. And if she were to join Deloitte today, and we went and evaluated her only twice a year, which is generally what a lot of companies do, a mid-year and a year-end, I said, that's not going to work with someone like that, a digital native who's coming out getting 300 likes in 5 minutes. So we're looking at a whole different way of doing performance management, particularly on the new generations around feedback, continual feedback versus twice-a-year feedback. Maybe taking rating systems out of performance management. Again, giving feedback more real-time on projects, on capability building, on taking risks, maybe stretch assignments. And I think that's all really important as we think about, again, the workforce of the future. And you think about predictability and flexibility. So I think a lot of companies have the flexibility thing down. A lot of people allow you to work from home certain days a week. With today's technology, you can work a lot of different places and be very productive and effective. However, That comes with a cost, this 24/7 environment. Some of our young people have said, we don't want to be working over the weekend. We don't want to be in line at the pharmacy or at the supermarket checking our smartphone for emails and text messages from our bosses. So some of this is about predictability too. We can give all the flexibility you want, but if it's not predictable, and in a client service business like we're in, yes, sometimes we have to work weekends. But if it can be more predictable about how we do it and where we do it, I think we'll all be in a better place. So we're working hard on those. And people talk about programs. I have people come to me all the time. What more programs are we going to put in and policies? And I say, we have the best programs and policies in the world, and we can put more of them in. But there is something still called the personal touch on building relationships with our clients and with our people and in the broader communities we serve that still counts. And although, again, I see my kids on social media all the time, I ultimately think when they get into the working world, that personal touch is still going to matter to them as we think about how to manage these different generations of the workforce. So an important point there, I think, as we think about millennials and the next generation. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about is, not only about the future of the profession, the audit of the future, the profession of the future, but is the expectations, rising expectations of regulators and investors. So we serve in our profession regulators, investors, shareholders, certainly companies as well, and what those expectations are and how they rise over time. And if you look at the regulatory environment, lots of industries have been regulated for many, many years. The pharmaceutical industry, 100 years. The utility industry, the banking and securities industry. In our profession, we've actually only been regulated since 2002. So I call us a toddler in being regulated. And we're still getting used to what it means to have the bar raised every year around quality. And a lot of people have their heads down about being regulated. But it has enhanced the quality and it has enhanced the value. And we're going to see over the next couple years a change in the things that, because of tools and technology and the evolution of what we're able to do and how quickly we're able to do it, a higher value in the audit rather than today's pass-fail report as an audit opinion that goes out today. So I think you'll see the auditor report change. I think you'll see the value that auditors bring change around metrics that aren't even financial, sustainability metrics about companies, other metrics that, again, are non-financial, but we're going to have to step up as a profession and be able to attest to those as well. So there's been a lot of discussion of this amongst the university community and data science, data analytics. If you're a student out there and you have the chance, I know you probably have statistics, but if you have the chance to take data science or analytics type courses here at USU, take them. You'll benefit from it enormously in the workforce, and firms like us will want to hire you more because you'll have that background. Because as we look at data analytics, big data, I know my daughter, she's a business major, a freshman at a college on the East Coast called Villanova. She's a freshman and she doesn't know what her major's going to be. So she's going, and they have a business analytics minor there. So she's going around telling everyone, I don't know what I'm going to major in, but I'm minoring in business analytics. So I said, well, your mother has brainwashed you very well from that perspective, because she's just walking around constantly saying that. So she understands the value of that, and and both basically the end users of our products are the investors and shareholders. And you read, anytime you pick up the Wall Street Journal or any business publication, there's a lot going on around shareholder activism. It's probably one of the major things on the board of directors' mind is activism, next to the second most popular thing, which is cyber and data protection, data security. So these are things, again, if you're a student, be curious about everything evolving around technology, around activism, around cyber, around data protection, around cloud, around the Internet of Things, the sharing economy. You're coming into this workforce at such an exciting time where you'll eventually be the expert and have a niche on a lot of these things than we who have been in the profession a long time have. So take advantage of that. Be curious about a lot of the stuff that's evolving around you, because it's a huge unknown today how this is all going to factor in to the company of tomorrow. But, I'm asked a lot of times, and I was asked a couple weeks ago by Fortune to talk about what I think the Fortune 500 will look like in 10 years. And I said, I know it's going to change a lot with the industry blurring lines and technology, but I know the characteristics of types of companies that will survive in the Fortune 500. And those are companies that have a relentless focus on the customer experience. That is number one. It's always going to be number one. That's what the digital landscape is all about, is helping the customer experience, especially with millennials and Gen Zs coming into the workforce and coming into the spending power of the U.S. economy. So don't be afraid to, again, be curious and branch out and look at global opportunities too. So that was one of the other things about the Fortune 500 of tomorrow. Won't be just a domestic company, won't be even just a company with global operations. It will be a truly integrated global company. And the more global and the more opportunities you have to do global assignments or get global perspectives, the better, again, you'll be ultimately in your career. And then one of the other things is there's an ecosystem out there of evolving companies that no one company is going to be able to do this alone going forward. So the Fortune 500 company tomorrow will use that ecosystem and will do alliances and collaborations and partnerships with companies to help themselves evolve into what I call a true 21st century company. I know that's what we're doing at Deloitte. We're using the ecosystem around us. We're partnering with small boutique firms in Silicon Valley to build some technology around AI and BI and analytics. We're partnering with, again, even some competitors. People call it competimates or coopetition, where, again, we're compete hard with our competitors, but we're all also cooperating to drive the future value of the profession that we're in. So, again, all this change that's emerging around us is offering an absolute world of change, but a very positive, again, for our young professionals. So I wanted to leave you with a couple things before we open it for Q&A. There's 3 things I want you to think about as you think about your own career, whether you're a career professional already today, which I know many of you are, or a student coming in to the workforce. So 3 things for yourself, and then 2 things for the profession. So the 3 things for yourself. The first one I call counsel, mentoring, counselship. I wouldn't be where I am today without those. And one of my sponsors is sitting in the room today, Jim Quigley, and we'll hear a little more on Jim in a little bit. And when I was a young partner and wanted to get advice on whether to accept a certain opportunity or not, Jim was there to give me that advice. And he didn't even know me that well, but he knew my reputation, he knew my work from others, and helped guide me to ultimately a opportunity that was maybe a little of a stretch assignment for me, but he took the risk, made me feel comfortable taking a risk. So you all need to either find a mentor, find sponsors who will pound the table for you for your next opportunity to build your capability, and also mentor and counsel and pay that forward to others. That's really important as well, and that's been part of what I definitely want to accomplish. So really important as you think about that to get to that next level. The next thing is confidence. This is something that every university I visit, I don't see all the confidence that should be there in the young men and women who will enter our profession. So confidence in this profession is about confidence around being skeptical, confidence around a questioning mind, confidence around, some of our clients don't want to hear the hard facts about doing the right thing sometimes. And if auditors and accountants don't have confidence in business people more broadly, we're not doing our job and quite frankly not serving the value that we should in the capital markets. But I also talk a lot about confidence in your own career, in managing your own career. For me, when Jim came to me with an opportunity once, when I wanted to say no, I had to have the confidence to have the yes right behind it, the opportunity I did want right behind it. So when your leadership comes to you, you want to build your capability, you have to have the confidence to step out of your comfort zone and build it more broadly, especially in today's evolving world. You're not going to stay in the same position for 20, 25, 30 years like maybe your parents did. You need to raise your hand, be willing to take risks, and have the confidence to do so. Because as we look at who we hire, people always say, what are the characteristics of someone you hire? First characteristic for me is confidence, because confidence leads to presence, presence leads to leadership, leadership leads to getting followership, and that cycle is a perfect employee from my perspective to hire into Deloitte. So think about that as you think about it. And I was at another university recently in a group of 250 women. So I'll make a gender comment here. The women, their number one questions were around, well, how do I get that confidence? How do I self-promote? Should I self-promote without being viewed negatively within my organization? And I said, we absolutely have to have the confidence that you, again, can build your capability more broadly and rise in an organization. instead of believing you're pigeonholed into one job and don't have the confidence. So raise your hand and ask for assignments that maybe are a little bit of stretch for you. The third C, so we had the confidence, and the third C is have a can-do attitude. This is a very broad area. It's important that your mindset be that you can do everything or anything. So a lot of people talk about having it all. Having it all is defined by someone else. I never wanted to have it all. I'm raising 2 children. I've got a big family. Love, balancing the work and life part of this. But it isn't about having it all. That's defined by someone else. I've always viewed it, can I do it all? Can I do it all in the context of what I want to do? That's defined by me. So think about having a can-do attitude and doing what you want to do in the time that you want to do it and the flexibility, predictability that you want to do. Because, I've had certain situations where it hasn't always been easy. I coached my daughter's basketball team for 5 years. That wasn't easy, but I wanted to make sure that was something I did for me, as well as having a high-performing career. My daughter was just a senior in high school. She was a very good lacrosse player. I made a goal, and you'll probably all say she's definitely an accountant and auditor, to make 75% of her games. And then I went and audited myself at how many games I got to, and I got to 85.2, by the way the math worked out. But that was important to me, and it was important to me that our young career professionals saw that I was leaving at 4 o'clock to go to one of her games. Now, I might have been back online at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, but I made sure that I found time and balanced all of that. And still was able to, again, build my capabilities and rise within the firm. So it is important that you feel you can do it, but doing it is defined by you, not by someone else. Do not let someone else define that for you, because you'll never feel good about it, and it is not perfect. And your career is not linear. Your work-family balance is not linear. When my kids were newborns and toddlers, they needed a lot more of me. And today, they're teenagers. I walk in the door, they don't even look at me. So I've had to adjust exactly what they need from me. Now I'm essentially a chef and an ATM and a chauffeur for them. But I think it's important to have that can-do attitude and define it as you want it. 2 things for the profession, because I like to leave time for questions. The first is take pride in your work and act with integrity. I talk about the 4 balls you juggle in life. I don't know if you've heard the James Patterson quote. The 4 balls you juggle in life are work, family, health, and integrity. And as you go through life juggling those balls, the work ball you find, it's rubber when you drop it. You have a bad day, you're on a bad project, a client fires you for some reason. You know what? It bounces back. That's a rubber ball. But family, health, and integrity, those balls are all glass. And those balls shatter when you drop them. So always keep that in perspective as you think about this profession, what you're doing in this profession, how important it is, the pride you take in it. But integrity is a glass ball, and make sure you handle that with care and always do the right thing. Second, whether you're a student, a professional, leader of the organization, talk to the next generation about what you love about what you're doing, what you're learning. So those that are already in the profession, already in the business community, talk about the positive things you do. Talk about the business environment that you see and how there's probably not another profession than ours where you get to go in and talk with major C-suite executives about the evolution of their business, the transformation of their business, whether it's small, medium, or large businesses, whether it's not-for-profit or for-profit. Talk about the positives in this profession. I just became the chair of the Center for Audit Quality, and this is all the big firms together trying to drive the vision of the profession going forward. And one of the things, our first idea is to do a social media day on Twitter and Instagram, and I don't really know a lot about Snapchat, but they said let's Snapchat about it too, and really drive some passion back into the profession and the positive parts of this profession. We've done surveys at Deloitte of investors and stakeholders, and they may not love the form of our report, they may want us to report more and give them more transparency, but one thing that's always clear is they value the auditor and the audit profession, the accounting profession very, very highly, and they still always say accounting is the language of business. So let's take away the myths of the negatives of the profession and make sure we're all paying it forward through talking about what we love about the profession and what the positives are. So with that, I want to just open it up for Q&A, and I think it's really important that we change, we evolve, and I'd love to answer any questions that you have about, the perspective where you sit, whether, again, you're serving clients today or you're a student. So let me open it up for questions. Who wants to be the brave? Brennan.
So you talked about finding sponsors and mentors in your profession. What worked for you to be able to identify someone you can confide in and get help in a professional setting?
The question was, and for those who couldn't hear it maybe there, the question was about finding mentors and sponsors and what worked for me personally. First, let me tell you that I think there's a difference between mentors and sponsors. Mentors are that person that you seek, advice from. You seek, should I do this, should I not? They help you through difficult decisions in your career. They help you figure out which balls you want to juggle and when. So that's a mentor. And those I have sought out over time. For instance, most of my mentors were men. A lot of people assume because I'm a woman I had women mentors. I didn't. Most of them were men who I had known had gone through different decisions in their career to build their capabilities. A sponsor's a little different. A sponsor for me, there were certain people sitting in rooms who were making decisions on my next assignment or my next, capability build, and I didn't even know that they were doing that. And one of my sponsors, I worked for 1 day. 1 day, 10 years ago, and he apparently 5 years later just knew of my work reputation and then was in a position of influence within the firm to say, I think Cathy needs to build her capability in this area, because he identified not me as a CEO candidate ultimately, but as a leader in the firm and someone who could drive our talent and our next generation of leaders. So sponsors are harder to go out and find. I always say there's no substitute for hard work, and the sponsors will come. Mentors you definitely can seek out and find mentors who, again, you respect and who you believe have made the right decisions in their career. Yes?
I really like the phrase you used about co-opetition.
Co-opetition, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and maybe an example you used recently?
Yeah, so co-opetition is this ecosystem out there of companies, no matter what industry you're in, who are banding together to drive the transformation of their business around whether it's digital, whether it's cloud, whether it's cyber. So again, it's companies who normally would be competing against one another who now are cooperating in order to drive, again, some business transformation, some change within a company. So you even see it in the space of consumer products, where consumer product companies are looking at, again, the digital space and maybe banding together from a digital perspective. In our profession, on our consulting side of our business, IBM and Accenture and McKinsey, they're all competitors to us, but IBM has cognitive technologies through Watson, for instance, and why wouldn't we take advantage of that as we build our cognitive technology within our own firm? So we're partnering through alliances and collaborations. The pharmaceutical industry is the most known for co-opetition or competimates, because they cannot go, the average drug takes $1 billion of R&D before it even gets approved, and only 1 in 10,000 molecules makes it to approval. So they all band together, the big pharma companies, pharma and biotech, pharma and small angel companies, investor companies band together to find the next cure for cancer or hepatitis or AIDS or whatever it is. So those are some of the examples of how you see companies using that ecosystem, and I think the ones who use that most effectively, even though they may say, I compete with that big company, are going to be the winners ultimately in transforming their business. Yes? So question was, I talked about the audit of the future, by the way, the future of audit. Remember, I shifted to the audit of the future because that sounds cooler, and it is cooler when you use all tools and technology. But what about Deloitte Advisory? So at Deloitte, we have a very large consulting and advisory practice, very large audit practice, and a large tax practice. So those are our main businesses. And so the future of advisory broadly, consulting and advisory, is very, very bright, especially globally, as you look at companies who are globalizing, as you look at companies who are using tech tools and technology to drive the transformation of their business. So again, I mentioned digital, cloud, the Internet of Things, the sharing economy. Companies are splitting like HP just did. Companies are acquiring and consolidating like you see Dell doing with EMC. So you really have so much change in companies who, again, want to get ahead, want to be the next, big company in the Fortune 500. And so the future of that is very bright because there's so much change and transformation going on. And every CEO and CFO I talk to After activism and cyber, transformation is the next on their list. And transformation is a good word for needing consultants to help them do it. Yes.
My question goes back to the three themes of personal things to think about. You talked about confidence and a can-do attitude, and you also talked about having a mentor to help you with some of those decisions. The question I have is, I know we're supposed to have stretch goals and we're supposed to accept tasks or projects that maybe we don't feel like we're qualified for. Do you have any advice as far as where to draw the line? Do we accept everything regardless of how bad we think we're going to fail at it, or do we have what
Right.
do we do to know what type of projects to accept?
All right, so hopefully you could hear that because I don't think I can repeat all that, but this was about, how do we know, that we should accept something? Should we accept everything, even though it might be a stretch that we think is even too much? That is where mentors come in and counselors come in, but it also is, this failing concept is, I think back at my kids, and they got trophies whether they won or lost, right? And you think about an attitude where, again, in certain industries you have to fail, but you need to fail fast, learn from it. And I'm sure the iPhone and the iPad and the Surface and all the technology that we use today weren't what they were on stage 1, 2, or 3, but people took risks, people failed, and then they went back to the drawing board and produced a better product with, again, a relentless focus on the customer experience. And that's why those are so successful. So I think you absolutely should not say yes to everything. But when you say no, again, I've learned in my career, I have to have the yes I want right there after it. You can't just say no. You have to say no with a purpose, no with a, here's the thing I do want. So when Jim asked me to move to St. Louis, I said, Jim, not sure that's right for me, but I think this client 2 miles from my house, considering I just had my second child and I could run home and feed the baby, is the right answer for me. And it happened to be in an industry where I had a skill set. And Jim said, oh, okay. Now we see that may be a better opportunity for you. So you got to have that yes following the no, because you can't just say no all the time. And you can't say no because you feel it's too much of a stretch assignment. You have to say no because you, again, feel that there's another opportunity. Because if you're being asked to do a stretch assignment, that means your management has faith that you can do something different to build your capability in a different way. So again, you don't have to say yes to everything. But saying no means you better have the yes right after it. And that's, again, what actually has driven my career at different stages to a higher level. Yes?
You mentioned that we should have confidence, and we will most likely not stay in the same position through our career. How long should we be staying in a position, realistically 5 years, 4 years?
Yeah, I don't think there's so the question was around how long to have the confidence to raise your hand and ask to do something else. How long should you be in one position before you move on to the next? The best company, so there's no black or white line. For me, it happened to be always 4 or 5 years, which you just threw out. That happened to be the time where I kind of got antsy and maybe the firm identified, okay, let's move Cathy on to the next thing. But there's no hard or fast rule. But I think the best companies who are identified for leadership development are those companies who rotate people through different assignments every 3 to 4 years. You look at the GEs and the Procter & Gambles, and you learn from what they have done around leadership development internally to build their leaders so that when they do succession, those leaders have already had several different stretch assignments where they say, they check all these boxes and say they have the capability to step up and do this leadership position. So there's no black or white rule. I would say for me it was about 4 or 5 years that when I was ready for my next assignment. Sometimes it was shorter just because of other successions going on. But I think what's important is you have to be willing to raise your hand. I think too many people don't have the confidence to raise their hand to say, maybe it's time for me to do something else. And quite frankly, sometimes your boss isn't comfortable losing you because you're their security blanket to get things done. But the best leaders are those who say, I will give that person up because they either will come back to me a better professional or they'll go on to other leadership positions and I'll be viewed as successful in building that future leader. Not everybody has that perspective, though, and that's why the best companies and the best leaders, every leadership book you read and every leadership list that all the companies and firms are on, it ultimately is about that. It's driving that capability and giving up that excellent capability so that person can grow and ultimately be a higher leader in an organization. Yes?
You talk about leadership
Yeah, so I did talk about leadership of the profession, so the accounting and auditing profession, although I would say that's a black eye, and every time there's a financial crisis, the profession gets blamed a little bit, or maybe a lot bit in some cases on different economic cycles. But I think that's why the integrity, the objectivity of the profession, I think if you talk to investors and stakeholders, so it all depends who you talk to. If you talk to regulators, it's a very political environment, they're always looking for someone to blame. Certainly our legislators are in Washington. I've spent a lot of time in Washington over the past couple months. And I think we need, change, which you're seeing a lot with the general election and everything that's going on. That will probably have some kind of change. Whether we'll all like it or not is a different story. But I think what's really important is that we show the value of the profession through, again, innovation. People say, Cathy, what do you want to be known for? I said, I want to be known as an innovator. Someone who drove investments, because we have to make investment choices every year. And if this profession doesn't innovate, we're not going to be able to recover in the next economic cycle. If we don't show the value that we bring, and we don't show that we understand the language of business more than anybody else, we don't show our young people, our young career professionals who want to get to the next level, that the value they're bringing to a client is very high, because sometimes they don't feel that way when they have their heads down, building work papers and auditing internal controls and things like that. So I think what is key is to drive the profession forward and to innovate. And the innovation, when we started investing in innovation, we'll spend $100 million over the next 3 years just in audit innovation. And when we started this, we did it because we wanted to take the manual rote tasks out of the audit. We wanted to make our clients feel better about what they pay us. But the biggest plus in innovation was our young people. If they can use this technology and use it digitally and use their smartphone to do an inventory observation and instead of old tally sheets on a clipboard, which we were still doing, and automate confirmations through a straight-through processing and use artificial intelligence to read contracts instead of manually reading them, this is going to be a huge, I think, plus for, again, the audit of the future. And that's where I think we'll be able to show the value. This is all going to be about value, and transforming both from a talent perspective and a process perspective is going to be important to that. Good question. All right, I think Brendan's telling me I'm out of time. Again, I want to thank you so much, and good luck to all of you as we, again, work towards the profession of the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cathy, for your words. We're now going to turn the time over to Dean Douglas Anderson, the Dean of the John M. Huntsman School of Business, for a special presentation.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Cathy, for those great comments and a wonderful insight. It's just a thrill to have you here on campus with us, and to welcome Jim and Bonnie Quigley back today. Many of you in this audience know that Jim preceded Cathy as CEO of Deloitte and then went on to become CEO of the global firm Deloitte Touche and Tomatsu. And I really think that rarely does so much brass in the accounting profession ever get together in one place in the world, but to have you here on our campus today is a great joy. So Cathy, I'm going to ask you actually come back up here on the podium with me to help make this very special presentation. I'd also like to ask Jim and Bonnie Quigley if they would join us on the stand. And we have President Albrecht, Stan Albrecht in the audience, President of Utah State University. Stan, if you'll come up. And finally, would like to ask Kathy Shostak, who is the Executive Director of the Deloitte Foundation, to join us, and Dr. Larry Walther, head of our School of Accountancy. So if you'll come on over and stand over here in the light where everybody can see you, I'll make just a few comments, and then I'm going to ask Cathy to make some comments too, if you would. So it's just a gigantic pleasure for us to announce today the Bonnie B. and James H. Quigley and Deloitte Foundation Endowed Professorship of Accounting. This is being funded by Jim and Bonnie Quigley, who are both Aggies and graduates of our university. It is just a distinct honor to be associated with the names of Jim and Bonnie Quigley and also with Deloitte. Three great names to burnish and strengthen our own brand. As I think many in this audience know, Jim graduated from Utah State University in 1974. He and I are contemporaries. Bonnie, of course, is much younger. and joined Deloitte and spent his career at Deloitte, doing many of the things that Cathy has described as well. Shortly after I became dean in 2006, I visited with Jim in his New York office, and he challenged us to build a world-class school of accountancy so that we could prepare future leaders of the profession who would go on and make great contributions to making this world a better place. And he said he'd like to help. And he has been a great partner, a great helper, and a great role model for our students ever since then. Jim, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you and Bonnie and your leadership role in making this happen. I know you've also wanted to make this gift at this time in honor of our great School of Accountancy Chair, Dr. Larry Walther. And Larry expressed great appreciation to you for what you've done in building this department over the years. And I think Jim's and Bonnie's gift today, and supported by the Deloitte Foundation, is evidence of the progress that has been made since Larry Walther has been chair. We've had 3 Eliza Watt Sells Award winners in the last several years. These are the most outstanding CPA exam takers in the country. Typically, you'll get 34 to 50 winners out of 92,000 in a year that will take that test, and 3 have come from Utah State recently. We've built just an outstanding new faculty, and now with this new endowed professorship, we'll be able to go on and recruit other great faculty to join us. And we hope also that this chair and the announcement of this chair today will inspire others of our friends and alumni to help endow future professorships and thus help us in our journey to top tier. So I'm going to ask, in a moment, I'm going to ask Cathy to say just a few more words about Jim and Bonnie. And then I'm going to ask Bonnie if she'd say a few words, and Jim, if you would too. I'm putting you on the spot, Bonnie. I know I didn't say I'd do this, but we want to hear from you. And then finally from President Albrecht. So, Cathy?
Thank you. Just a few more words about Jim and Bonnie. You know, there are oftentimes in your career you have a lot of leaders above you, but it is not often that you have a leader like Jim was to Deloitte. So I don't just say that now as the CEO of Deloitte, but I would have said that even if I wasn't. Jim was an extremely popular, extremely humble, modest leader at Deloitte, taught me a lot about being a servant leader, and I just really appreciate what he has done over his 38 years at Deloitte, and now in retirement is on some very significant boards of directors, again, continuing to serve the business community. So we have a mantra at Deloitte called, making an impact that matters on your clients, our people, and the communities we serve. There's no better person living that every day now, even in retirement, than Jim Quigley. So I'd like to thank him. I'd like to thank Bonnie, who we've shared many laughs with. And Jim put together a little book towards the end of his career at Deloitte called Takeaways. And Jim got the opportunity to meet with lots of C-suite executives at lots of global companies. And I just wanted to read one of his last takeaways that's still very popular at Deloitte and we still talk about. And his final takeaway was, pay it forward. The day we stop giving is the day we stop receiving. The real secret of success is not what we have or what we receive, it's what we share. And I think that embodies who Jim and Bonnie are and who they are here at USU. So again, congratulations, Jim, and thank you for everything you've done, and Bonnie as well. Thank you.
No one could be more surprised at where Jim and I are today than my mother. And she's been in a different place for 10 years now. She's passed away in 2005, but I'm sure that she is probably someplace smiling at us, but wondering, really, those 2 kids? Jim and I have been together for a very long time. We were high school sweethearts, and Jim was invited to come to Utah State on a football scholarship. We both had academic scholarships, and I decided I wasn't going to let him get away from me, so I decided I was coming to Utah State too, and therefore I was able to use my academic scholarship here. We've been a great team for a long time, and this is silly. I've loved being his teammate. He's a great man. He came from a great dad and mother, and they too would love being here today. They are Aggies of 1938, so we're proud to be here in their stead. This has been a great opportunity to meet Dr. Walther and to be part of his team building for the accounting department. We could not be more happy with the little bit that we might have done to help solidify this chair and hopefully bring lots more wonderful accounting majors out of BYU. And, excuse me. Oh, my goodness. Oh, terrible.
No, we're bringing them from BYU to here. That's exactly right.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
It's the other school of accountancy. You have the Utah State School of Accountancy, and then there's another school of accountancy.
Anyway, we are great, Utah State. We are very happy to be Utah State University graduates and part of this great university. Jim has some really wonderful prepared remarks, so I'm going to turn the time over to him. But thank you very much for being here and part of this.
Probably the best part of prepared remarks is to not use them, I suppose. But I would quickly acknowledge, it's been said many times that behind every successful man is a very proud mother, a surprised spouse, and a very surprised mother-in-law in my case. But I think Joyce would be proud. I think it took a while to sort of win her over. My advice to any of you who are dating a beautiful young woman who's quite an accomplished pianist, when you start to date seriously, don't let her stop taking piano lessons. Your relationship with your mother-in-law will never recover. But I just simply want to say thank you to a few people and then just try to make a couple of points. First of all, in the thank you department, a huge thank you to Cathy. I was very grateful that she would say yes in coming here, and I appreciated her support as we were working to just complete the funding for this professorship. We wanted to do this, as Dean Anderson stated before Dr. Walther got away. I have huge respect for him and for what he's done. And when we began the process of trying to provide some support in a variety of ways, it was very much as a vote of confidence in what we were witnessing that he was doing and the difference that he was making. I am very impressed by this School of Accountancy and what has been done. And when you get those Elijah Watt sales winners, and you're getting a student that is recognized out of 100,000 people who are sitting for the exam, you know that they're being well prepared and that they have applied themselves, because to be one of the 30 or 40 recognized out of 100,000 who take an exam like that, that is only the product of an outstanding program, an outstanding preparation. And Dr. Walther is someone who makes a difference, and I'm very proud to be associated with him. I'm impressed with what Dean Anderson has done. And you look across the campus and you see that Huntsman Hall coming, and you know something very special is happening here in the School of Business. And the opportunities are going to be provided to many, many, many young people for them to be able to go on and do great things. And President Albrecht, one of my favorite pictures, I had the privilege of speaking at commencement. I don't remember the year 2006 or 2007. And the spectrum was filled. And I was sitting there sort of a little full of myself. And then I sort of looked to my left and I realized, oh, the spectrum is filled because that's L. Tom Perry who's going to be speaking. They actually came to hear him, but I'll try not to squander my 13 minutes with them. But that was a very special day for us, and we enjoyed it. And we have so many positive memories from our time here. And so to the institution, Utah State, I just simply want to say thank you and then try to make a point. And I think it does complement the points that Cathy has provided. I thought brilliant insights. And And you're very lucky that we were able to get Cathy to say yes to come. You can only imagine the demands and calls on her time, and I'm very grateful that she would take the time to be here with us. And so my effort at a couple of points. When I was taking a calculus class here, Dr. Underwood, who I had huge respect for, and I enjoyed math, I obviously enjoyed my accounting studies as well, but one of the points that he made was don't think of your degree as an education, but rather think of it as the key to actually obtain an education. And I am grateful to Utah State for giving me that key. And I'm grateful to Deloitte for actually completing the work that Utah State began in terms of my training, my experience, and my background. And then some of the things that I learned here were some hard things that were useful to me as I went on. And so I would first start by simply acknowledging that as a high schooler, I had sort of two things that I cared about. One was every minute that I could spend with Bonnie, I wanted to spend with her. And the second thing that I really cared about was sports. And rather naively, I sort of thought that's all there was in life, and that's all that really mattered was sports. And so I was a high school quarterback of some accomplishment. I was an all-state high school quarterback, and with the confidence that 18-year-olds can engender, I thought I was going to waltz right in here and be the starting quarterback at Utah State University. And what I discovered is football practice in high school is sort of a delicate experience if you're the quarterback, because the coach puts a yellow jersey on you. And then he says to the defense, if you hit yellow, you're going to run. And what I discovered as a freshman quarterback when I walked in here is you are a tackling dummy for the starting varsity football players, and they hit hard, and they are big men. And as a 175-pounder, when one of those 250-pounders takes you down, you sort of remember that. And I know that quarterbacks now come in 250-pound packages. We were at Ohio State a couple of weeks ago, and they have quarterbacks, 250 pounds, but I didn't weigh 250 pounds. And after that freshman year, I sort of had to discover. They invited me to come back for spring ball, and I said, thank you very much, but I'm getting on with my life. And what I accepted, which was hard for me, but I think I owe Garth Hall and the football coaches at Utah State a gigantic thank you, because they didn't think I was a Division I-A quarterback. And I accepted that reality, and I put my cleats aside, and I got on with life. And had I hung on to that forever, I'm not sure what the outcome would have been. I might have been dead as this tackling dummy, but I had about all of that I needed or wanted. And then the second lesson for me was my father was a forester, his father was a forester, and I came here with the expectation, because I'm a big lover of the outdoors, that I was going to be a forester. So being the very pragmatic, practical person that I was, I went to the placement office, and how many graduated in forestry last year? 100. How many obtained jobs in the field? 4. And I sort of decided, maybe that's not the way I'm going to provide for my family. And I went over to the business school, and I got to the business school and started taking those business classes. And then I was looking around the room and watching how everyone was performing, and I saw at the top of the table, every time that the scores were posted, the accountants were always at the top. And I just decided, And so I pragmatically, wanting to be able to provide for my family that was important to me, I moved into accounting, and I have never looked back. It's been wonderful. And then the last thing that I wanted to just simply acknowledge, and that is to pay tribute to the late Larzette Hale. I had huge respect for Dr. Hale, for an African-American woman from Georgia. And as she would explain to us how you took the CPA exam, because if you were black in those years, you were downstairs in the basement, while all the white kids were upstairs with natural light sitting for that 3-day exam. But for her to rise to become the professor here, that was impressive to me. And then for her to ultimately become the head of the accounting department, That was impressive to me. But I learned an interesting lesson from Dr. Hale. In intermediate accounting, I had the highest test score in the class, and so I thought this was all done. And I went over when the grades were posted, and I saw next to my student number an A-. And I thought, how could that possibly be? I had the highest test scores in the class. So I went to Dr. Hale and I said, help me with this. I had the highest average in the class. Why are you giving me an A-? And she said, well, Mr. Quigley, do you think you deserve an A? Do you think you did what it took to actually earn that A? And what she was saying to me was she wasn't particularly impressed that I sat on the back row and said nothing all semester unless called upon. I did nothing to contribute to the success of the class. And she expected someone who earned an A actually gave their very best. And she didn't think that I had done so. And learning while still in college that if you actually want to be recognized as the best, you have to give your best. And you cannot be content with just what it takes to get by. Just because I knew how to take an exam and ace it, that wasn't what it took to really give my best. And then I've seen just countless times in business the winning edge. How do you get that winning edge? And it's not by doing the minimum that is required to get by. It's by giving your very best. And then maybe we get the privilege of enjoying John Wooden's definition of success, of that self-satisfaction that comes from knowing that you've done your very best. But I took lots away from Utah State University, and I'm very grateful for the privilege of having attended here. And Bonnie and I, Cathy talks about the audit of the future as a way of trying to express things in a very positive way. I don't like to say that I'm old by talking about how old you are. I like to talk about how many birthdays I've celebrated. So Bonnie and I have celebrated quite a few birthdays, and so we've celebrated enough birthdays that we're to the give-back stage of life, and we're delighted to be able to give something back to Utah State University. We are proud Aggies. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Albert.
Bonnie, just before coming over here, I had the opportunity to meet with a group of high school students who were here looking at Utah State as a potential destination university for them. They were there with their parents. They happen to all be from Utah County. And I told them that as president of Utah State University, I take great satisfaction in saving students from Utah County. And so we'll take students out of BYU and save them at Utah State. So that was good. That was most appropriate. Thanks very much, all of you, for being here, and for those who have spoken, and to Jim and Bonnie, great friends. As Cathy noted, we make many decisions along the way that affect the path that we choose. And those decisions are best made when they're well-informed decisions. And so as she was speaking, I reflected back a little bit on the fact that I wish I could have heard her give that talk, not when I was an undergraduate student, but clear back when I was in high school. Because back when I was in high school, we had to periodically take aptitude tests. Some of you may have done that, may remember that. And the first 2 or 3 aptitude tests I took, when they were graded and I was taken in by the counselor to sort of review what the test told her, she would say, "You should be an accountant." And back at that time, I was an outdoors kind of guy. I grew up on a horse. The last thing I wanted to do was be an accountant. And so from that point forward, when I took an aptitude test, if it said, "Would you rather chase butterflies or X?" I would always choose chase butterflies, because I wanted to make sure that that aptitude test gave me something outside. So I made a really serious mistake, Cathy, and I made that mistake because it was an uninformed decision. And so thank you for helping us better understand the importance of informed decisions. A number of years ago, when I was asked to take this assignment as president of Utah State University, and we set out in this goal of really moving toward ever greater excellence, not just in the Huntsman School, where we see it reflected every day in all of the things that the dean and his colleagues are doing, but across the entire university. Someone said to me, what is the thing that will contribute most to Utah State University achieving that goal of building excellence? And I commented back to that person that the strength of a university is determined in large part by the strength of its faculty. And so to really lift this institution in the ways that we hope to lift it, we needed to continue to build the strength of our faculty. And one of the best ways of doing that, of course, is to have endowed chairs, endowed professorships that we can then use to attract those outstanding faculty here to Utah State University, to build faculty excellence, to create outstanding experiences for those of you who are students, and to really lift the institution in the eyes of the world as they look to us, because named professorships, named chairs do that in a very significant way. And so, Jim and Bonnie and Deloitte, on behalf of the university, thanks so much for your generosity, for the great gift that allows us to take this very, very important step of adding an endowed professorship and continuing on that path of building excellence at Utah State University. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President. Now I'm going to ask all of our honored guests if they'll just step out a little bit here forward to the stage under the lights so we can take some pictures. And President, I'm going to ask you to pick up one of these very heavy mementos, tokens. And Larry, Dr. Walther, if you would pick up another. They are identical. And Larry, if you would please present Jim and Bonnie with their, and President, if you would present Cathy with hers on behalf of the Deloitte Foundation. Bonnie and Jim and Cathy. And Cathy, thank you so much. You honor us greatly by being here today. And your leadership example will inspire many others, I think, along the way to help us on our journey ever upwards to always graduating those Eliza Watt-Sells Award winners. So thank you so much.
So lunch is over in the Taggart Student Center ballroom, and at 12:30 there'll be another speaker that will speak while we're eating lunch. So just start heading over that way. If you don't know where it is, just follow the herd.